Peace. This is the Ash Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. And today's episode is about creativity, right? So I'm here at XOXOfest 2016 here in Portland, Oregon. A festival I didn't know existed actually before about 2 or 3 months ago, just through a chance occurrence, through a meeting, talking to some other people, found out about it. Was asked if I would, or I don't know if I was asked if I'd like to go or if I just asked to go, somewhere in between those two. But basically, it's a festival and a conference sort of around people who create things on the internet, and this is a podcast which exists on the internet. Um, so right now, I'm actually recording inside the Airstream or the Streampdx, which is a project to create a community based podcasting recording studio that's accessible to the community. So, meaning anyone that wants to put something together once this is operational can come through and add on and have access to the equipment necessary to immortalize their thoughts on tape, like I'm doing right now. So, what I decided, I think, within the the vein or the view of what this is, what this building is about, and what this festival is about, at least as I read it so far, I want to take you through a short history of my own kind of experience with creativity and what have you, but actually prior to the internet, right, and leading up to this point in this moment, because the person at my particular physical degree, that's age for those not associated or within the purview, understanding what that means. The internet didn't exist, you know what I'm saying, when I at least as something that regular people with phones and things used when I was born for sure back in '76. But when I was a teen, even by the time I got out of high school, it was a thing of right on the line of people that sort of understood this idea of internet and what you can really do with a personal computer, and people that's like, yo, computers is where I play games and write write essays and whatnot. So I'm gonna take you way way back. All right, so I'm African American for those that don't know, and I'm from a family that really incentivizes high on you work, you do something, you do very tangible things out here in American society. And although I have creativity in different ways as a thing shows up in different places, um, the focus of like creativity is something that you might do for fun. Creativity is something that you might do for like hanging out with family. Maybe you might sing in a choir at your church if you was instruments, things like that. Maybe playing music for sure was something that, but just the idea like I'm going to create or craft a life that's around doing something creative. And obviously, as I stated when we started, the idea of the internet did not exist as a thing when I was 9 or 10 years old. As a where could you go to share the things that you wanted to say to the world or do creatively? It was physical medium, so painting, drawing, art, so visual media, photography. It's making music, which by the time I was coming of age was hip hop, R&B, jazz, maybe rock and roll, maybe metal if you was into it, what have you. But the when I was a kid, pretty much if you were not from a family where somebody was already an artist for a living, the idea that you'd like prepare your life to be a creative artist or do something creative as a means to as what you do and what you add value to, not necessarily that it was totally discouraged, but if you didn't show some level of aptitude or high level of skill early on in life, you would not necessarily be encouraged to pursue that or to craft that. And I think something that has definitely changed with the access to the tools that the internet provides is that if you have a perspective on something or you have a lane of expression, you can find an audience. And if it is something that does translate to the screen or to the ear, to the earphone in some way, it's a pretty good chance you're going to have an opportunity to let somebody see it, right? I just watched a really interesting piece of some stuff that I've seen before. I can't pronounce the brother's name, so I will add that in the show notes at some point. However, of whole worlds that because early on in the internet, I was not, I was in college and I wasn't really using it to like make funny videos and crazy gifs and whatnot. But I did learn early how to make a website and some other things before it became easy to access. But anyway, let me get back to the point. So my earliest experiences in being creative were um, drawing stuff with my brother and my cousins. You know, we used to play Dungeons and Dragons and things, and it'd be like, yo, we're gonna make a character. I'm gonna spend an hour trying to draw what my character might look like, or I would draw a sword because I really wasn't good with drawing people, at least their faces. Like I could get bodies, I could get masks, but like detailed faces were not my greatest strength. But I could draw the other stuff, so I'd be like, oh, this is what my sword is like. It's ill. You know what I'm saying? This is what my battle axe he got. You know what I'm saying? My super orc, half human, you know, orc minotaur man human thing was like, you know what I'm saying? He's big and strong. He smashes stuff because I was real into that. Um, but that's, you know, that was the extent of it. You know what I mean? But I always operated with a very creative framework in terms of like enjoying whatever opportunities were put in front of me to do something artistic or dealing with, you know, other modalities of expression besides talking or singing or dancing. You know what I'm saying? I was with that. You know what I'm saying? This is, you know, I grew up in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Graffiti writing. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was practicing their graffiti letters, even if they wasn't actually out here, you know, trying to go all city, so to speak, in their neck of the woods, or he's trying to get up. You know what I mean? You wasn't out here getting up, but you was still embracing the idea of like, yo, I can not just say my name, but I can say it in a stylistic, fresh way. Right. So, but my early experience was that. So me and my brother once we made this game, and you know, I don't know what led us to it, but we decided we was gonna make like a kind of like fantasy football type game. But we made teams. We created a whole league. We were going like we made categories like you draft players. We started drawing the logos for the game. We were convinced, like, you know, we spent maybe, I don't know, we spent a lot of hours doing all the art and the other stuff, kind of, but it was like we gave us the cover to be doing this art and this creative kind of fantasy making under the guise of like, well, we doing sports though, right? You know, in the winter, you know, after football season's over or time of year, you really can't be outside like that. You know what I mean? So we had those type of realities. Now we didn't necessarily have a lot of external support. Not that my mom's, you know, was against such things. It was just sort of like, am I really gonna tell mom that that's what I'm doing or that's what we're gonna talk about? Like, yeah, mom, I'm out here trying to make a you know, a fantasy football game, and we're gonna try to get all our friends to play. Like, I mean, just it was more of a like, mom works too hard to be out here trying to, to convince her what we're doing right now, right? So anyway, let me move forward. So then the other thing I started learning how to play the clarinet. Now I kind of ended up starting learning how to play the clarinet, and it's my fault because I really should have just been like, I don't even want to know how to play the clarinet. I'd rather learn how to play the piano or the drums or anything else. You know what I'm saying? But I think it was my brother was already trying to play the sax, and he was doing okay with it. And it was like, well, you could play the clarinet. And I want to say my grandma was like, oh, well, yeah, Jolly, you should play the, you know, clarinet. Oh, it's nice sounds, blah blah blah. I did no practicing. You know what I'm saying? We had this clarinet. I'm in here killing geeses and all that. Um, you know, so that didn't go far. And then I just had to stop because I wasn't practicing, and I needed to stop faking the funk. You know what I mean? I needed to respect respect the game. Like I'm not really doing the task here. So another dead end. But I still like, you know, creating not just stories and ideas, but whenever I would start to think about something that I wanted to make, I would also want to draft or draw up, you know, other pieces to go with it. You know, what we would nowadays, and I realize now, is like a part of branding or developing a brand package, which is not just the words or the image, the words, the images, the ideas you're trying to convey, the physical, other ways that manifests the references that it connects to in the macro world. But again, at this time in my life, I didn't have access to people who would identify that, and I'm not even sure if the culture of things, you know, at that time would have done such a thing anyway, right? So in any event, I keep moving forward. I enjoy making things. You know, I was a kid that when I was locked out the crib, you know what I'm saying, which happens because you forget your house keys, you can't get in the crib. My mom worked for a living. My father died when I was 5. Therefore, you know, at a certain age, I'm coming home by myself. You know, so I'm locked out the crib. I sit out in front of the crib, play with stones and leaves because I saw shapes and beings and entities in that, and I could make up a story and make up a way to enjoy myself via that. So I would make that happen. Um, I get through, grade school, middle school, where the places where you still always sort of have art class, you know what I'm saying, or at least it's an option, you know what I mean? And this is when it's kind of the larger macro society of things starts to run up against my interest in the development and really the capitalization of my skills, right? And my interest. And then I speak about this just from the perspective is I don't know who else had their horizon, shut down because basically in my school system by 10th grade, there was no more light to be given as it pertained to creative arts, right? If you didn't play in the band, right, which you could keep doing, if you weren't in drama, and I don't even remember if the drama class had a class outside of actually going to drama in the after school, that sort of thing, that was it. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no more art. There were no more art elective classes. There was no shop classes anymore. There was no, creative material stuff. You know what I mean? You could go do typing and intro to computer programming, which I did. But those weren't even like connected to like making games or some other videos. There wasn't a crossover at that point. Um, and so if you didn't have access to those things outside of school, or the level of enthusiasm that maybe would lead you to just go find your way to connect with those things outside of school, that was it. You know what I mean? So my art more or less went down to drawing. I'm a doodler, so if me and you are somewhere chilling and I got a pen and a piece of paper, I'm gonna be doodling shapes and images and structures and busting out fractals and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's in me. That's how I get down. Um, so as you progress, I realized that I did have a burning, kind of like an energy where I wanted to manifest my reality in other modes and other means. And so I decided to look at maybe going back into music, especially when I got into college, right? So I had my brothers was rapping, doing everything, and I'm on the sidelines. I'm rolling with them. I'm helping them with stuff, and I'm like, man, I want to bust some, I want to lay something down on the track. You know what I'm saying? I want to add on, and because I did have the one thing I didn't lose was the willingness to try creative expression modalities that that I wasn't familiar with, just to rewind and then come back forward. I remember one of the two areas where we did have opportunity to do sort of like dramatic things. I remember this was maybe like, this might have been third grade, like like after school program, kind of like school play. I think I had to be I think I was like my coat. I was like a squirrel or some shit, and my coat was supposed to change colors. You know what I mean? As we went from one season to the next within the scope of the story. And I remember being home, I was mastering my lines and like trying to figure out how to spit it and like trying to figure out how to like make my clothes look this way. And I had like this, I think I brought a blanket or a towel or something. And I was gonna drop the blanket. You know what I'm saying? When the time came to change for the season, I was spending all this time like really trying to be on point with it. You know what I'm saying? And then I remember doing it, and it did. I did well. It was a tour de force performance. But I remember kind of thinking, I don't think any of my cohort here, my other people I'm doing this childhood play with, really give a damn. Like they're kind of doing it because they made them do it, but then, they had no inspiration, no like no underlying tension or emotion to whatever they were saying as we were doing the play. You know what I mean? And that's one of the first times I realized, like, you could be really into stuff and other people just ain't really into it, right? And these are not the typical things within the framework, often of how we're cultivated to to see our interests and skills. We get circumspect, like cut down, you're this, you're that. You know what I'm saying? And I realize via that and many other things, which is still a testament, a standard for me now, is I am the person in your meeting that is holding their tongue because I'm waiting for one of you clowns to talk, right? Waiting for somebody else to say something. And I'm not afraid to speak in front of people. I'm not afraid to be present. So, all right, fast forward back to the future. That's how we get to rhyming. Because I was like, well, look, I think I can figure it out. I got stuff I'd like to say now because I tried to rap when I was 14, 15, and it was terrible. It was boo-boo to boo-boo to boo-boo to boo-boo boo-boo bop bop. It was whack. So I decided that I needed to I needed to lock in. I needed to actually put some time and energy. And it took a little while to figure out how to hear the music the right way, how to really get on beat. Um, and then I just started rapping, right? And I just continued writing um, and other things because the thing that I found for me is, using different modalities to express yourself really helps me to manage, um, you know, the emotions, the the feelings, the things that are generated by the challenges that we face, right? So in the 90s, I lived in Pittsburgh, right? So when Johnny Gamage was killed, you know what I mean, during a traffic stop, just for all that don't realize that these things ain't new, you know, being able to, one, talk about it, with my brothers that I did music with, um, draw, sketch out ideas, think, in other modes about how I felt about that happening to him, and what that meant for me, what that meant for my, you know, my brothers, the people that I spent the most time with, my close, compatriots, so to speak. Without vehicles for creative expression, without a place to dance, without a place to go to be at a show and be around some joy, that stuff starts to wear you down, right? That's why we need creativity in our lives, but it's not often something that you can keep going and sustain without access to tools and services and situations. You know what I mean, if you don't have, and if we're not emphasizing it, and that's why I'm talking about this today, is um, I rapped for several years. We put out some mixtapes. I think I could find some of them on the internet in the Pittsburgh area. We did a live show for I think 3 years. I want to say the Therapeutics, which was actually geared towards making something accessible to young people, so teenagers, and we put a lot of young artists, let them come up and have their first opportunity to do a live show, and a real live show where they could promote it, and I wasn't some promoter trying to profit off of them by saying, oh yeah man, you go give out these flyers and we charging everybody at the door, a grip, and you ain't getting paid. We like, no, this is what it is, and there is a cost, but this is your moment, and it wasn't. I thought it was a very authentic. People liked it. People enjoyed it. But also then you start to learn the workload behind creativity, because what a lot of y'all don't respect, for somebody that raps, somebody that makes beats, somebody that is, and then in these other modalities, you're a visual artist. Like, you can't just print money, so to speak. You have to, you need supplies. Recording artists need mics, you need cords, you need a recorder, right? And in the 90s, you needed tape, like ADAT. And I guess you could do stuff on a 4-track. I mean, there were tools, but I mean, it's a lot easier now. Like now, this podcast, although I'm right here in the Streampdx Airstream live studio doing this, if I wasn't, I got a Zoom H5N, which is a small little recorder that I could plug in with a mic, and I can make a stone cold recording almost anywhere, man, which was unthinkable 20 years ago. At least not something that was, within reasonable range of expense. You know what I'm saying? When I first, started touching a mic to make something happen. But the thing that happened with me with rapping is I learned that as much as I enjoyed, putting together songs and thinking about the concepts, I did not love it enough to stop other things. So, by trade, or by at least by academic completion, I'm a historian and a teacher. I also, I guess I'd say I have an unofficial degree in therapy and the general well-being of the mind, and that's where I hang my hat in terms of that. I understand people and I study people, from not just a experiential reality, but from a historical perspective. As much as I can, I tie in what's happening with science and understanding of the human function, biopsychology, what have you, to look at people's behavior and look at who they are, and then see the best part, see what makes them go from that. But I was not finding that work at the time, in rapping. So I went dormant. I shut that down. I had bought a MPC 1000. I was gonna make beats, and I just kind of at some point I had to buy the bear witness that I wasn't really that into making beats, at least not all the time. And I transitioned to writing, um, and at this point, that's before I came back to this. That's where I started placing my creative output is writing stories, starting stories. I've been developing stems for fictional pieces and other things for several years. And now I'm moving to the stage where I'm actually trying to take that work and get it out to the world, which was something I was hesitant to do for a long time. All right, so you might say, well, Justice, why are you sharing that you were hesitant to do something or what have you? Because the vision and the idea of why I started doing this podcast is that the roads and the pathways and the channels as a man in this world have often been in conflict with with these other interests and enthusiasm, things I'm enthusiastic about personally. And I realized that I have made choices at times to not do stuff because I could not find a very clear pragmatic path to it existing, because within the scope of how I was raised and what you're supposed to do as a man and just as an adult was you need to do something that you can see where you make the money at it. You know what I'm saying? If you learn how to paint, you make money by painting people's houses. If you a carpenter, you make money by doing carpentry services for people, right? I had to learn that, and this festival that I'm attending right now, this XOXOfest 2016, is showing me and reminding me that with the tools and the things that are out there now, if you have an interest, if you're willing to put in the time, there might be an opportunity for you, if maybe not necessarily to find like, oh, there's a paycheck waiting for me, but there might be a connection to something else that you could be doing, either maybe with an agency, maybe for a community group, or maybe just, there's something that you might discover about yourself if you're willing to put yourself out there. And my goal is that those that listen and hear this show would listen and maybe change their expectations and horizons, or at least move the points where they decide, I can or can't do, or can or can't pursue, or spend time working on this. Because the thing that I've learned at this point in life, especially in terms of finding and maintaining a path of righteousness, walking in a healthy direction, is your interests and your curiosities are a gateway to building community. They're a gateway to looking and finding purpose and substance and meaningfulness in your world, right? And if you convince yourself that you have no interests, right, you have no curiosities, is a pretty good chance that you will stay within whatever the predominant model for masculinity that you've been given, right? So if your masculinity model is, men like to blow up stuff and drive big trucks, right? And not that that is bad. If you like blowing up stuff and driving big trucks, just, it's not bad. But if you aren't personally into that, or you feel like, the fact that what I really like? I really like avant-garde paintings. You know what I'm saying? And I don't see no other men doing that, so I'm just gonna not go to the Modern Art Museum or the exhibition when it comes to my town, because I don't want the theoretical, senior class student when you were in 10th grade picking on you or questioning why would you go see that, right? You don't want this, the specter of your older brother or your cousin or whoever it was in your life. It might have been Pops who was like, what kind of man looks into that? Or that shit makes me uncomfortable. Whatever, way it came down to you, that then you're cutting off opportunities, either for your own release of energy, your own learning, for your own creativity to find its place, or, in a very simple level, your own enjoyment, for the satisfaction of others, the satisfaction of a idea of manhood that is absolutely unhealthy, right? And just as a product, as a product message, well, I'll just say as a universal note, all statements made by Justice Raji, the Ash Your Old Head podcast host and creator, can be applied universally if you choose to do so. So don't please, if it sounds like this is only advice for people who see themselves as men, that's not my intent. But that is the focus of this show. That's who I target in this show. But the truth is for everybody. Take the best part. All right. So coming back full stream before I wrap up. So that's what gets me here today to the Ask Your Old Head podcast and the other Ask Your Old Head things that may come in terms of the blog and whatever else may be, is that I have an experience in the world as a man that I don't typically hear talked about. And honestly, other people just don't see it the way I see it, to the best of my understanding. So my goal in some of this work is releasing this particular part of my own creativity to explore how I have come to be who I am, but also what I'm working towards, but also trying to open up the lane, so to speak, for other things to happen. So this right now is an expression of how the things that are interesting to me, the power of the human voice, the beauty of conversation, the value of, authentic statements, spoken to the best of one's capability and ability in a given time. And so that's how I got here, and that's what I'm trying to do. So with that said, I think I'm going to go ahead and close this show. Thank you to everyone here at XOXO Fest. This has been pretty dope. I'm hoping to listen to some more speakers and catch some more of the creative projects that are going to be going on the rest of this time I'm here. I'm actually hoping to get back on the mic. I think I got some other stuff I might add on with here in the Streampdx Airstream studio. Thank you for listening. Catch you next time. Peace. This has been the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. Please subscribe to Ask Your Old Head either on Twitter at Ask Your Old Head, or me personally at JUST_IFE. You can also find me on Instagram at JUST_IFE. And Ask Your Old Head is found on the internet at www.askyouroldhead.com. Travel safely. Peace.